And if you could keep it in 5 minutes, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Mayor Copenhagen and gentlemen of the Commission, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Mr. Mayor, I, like you, have always loved the economic development that comes with mega projects, having served for a quarter century on such projects in manufacturing sites from California to Washington to Florida to Pennsylvania and points in between. I say this to offer that my focus is not anti-development, just anti-irresponsible spending and fraud. I rise before you tonight to speak in opposition to these agreements regarding the conference center and the Reynolds Street parking deck. This comes from having spent years in crisis management mode for companies whose projects went horribly wrong, but it comes even more from my Augusta experience. I once proposed doing a cost recovery effort in Augusta that might have reformed Augusta government with Administrator Randy Oliver. He was interested, but then he hit a patch of turbulence and concluded it just wasn't possible in Augusta. The influence of the connected folks was just too great. I went on to get new corporate clients and among the Fortune 500, but I never could work in Augusta. The saga of the T-Center over the last 5 years has been a twisting and turning affair from the start. The last chapter should not be written tonight. The irregularities, the failures, and evidence, which are legion, scream stop. We in the 12 counties destined to be coupled with you by the T-Splost are a watching, nervous, and perhaps unwilling bride. We see $50 million in buildings built on land you don't own. Undisclosed liens of various descriptions. Land to be donated turned into air. A bribery trial involving this very project. Controversy going back to 1998 with these same partners. And finally, that you find yourselves hostages tonight, threats of those liens. These things pose a dire warning for those associating ourselves with you. While these are strong words, they are directed in a sense of hope, a profound desire to make this the night that every one of you can recall with enormous pride, the night that 10 men and a mayor who have feuded relentlessly came together and started accomplishing that which predecessors of the last 40 years could not. I would be proud to help. First, we have serious issues to address. Gentlemen, you simply cannot ratify this proposal tonight, offered under duress and a myriad of questions without the most serious of consequences for this community. The people bear witness to that. Yes, the building is built, and no one wants this mess during the Masters. But you must stop and make sure that these people are protected by the strongest of audit rights, open record access to, and an immediate review of past, current, and future operations under the management of this private partnership. I cannot imagine the consequences if you proceed. I would not want to be in your shoes should you vote yes. You see, if this body in its wisdom does not embrace a comprehensive program of reform, sound financial controls, and contract enforcement, beginning tonight, the sledgehammer blows from the revelations of stunning irresponsibility, indeed fraud, will rip apart this community. I do not refer to the transaction currently at issue because I don't believe there's any fraud involved, but others that we have identified throughout this government in recent months. Mr. Brigham was having trouble with spending $30,000 on the audit. Well, I think we could get that much back with 2 phone calls. There might be millions salvageable in this government that are being squandered while you're laying off people and getting into austerity. Mr. Jackson seems to have brought up the administrator's assurances that there's security in the work of $500 an hour bond attorneys. Is there? In Jefferson County, Alabama, the county administrator and 4 county commissioners are now in the penitentiary because of the spawn of bond attorneys. There's a national scandal unfolding around the municipal bond market. It pays to keep up with these things, lest you become the next victims. Several of the people in this room may have made some of the biggest misjudgments and miscalculations of their lives. You have a vote to make. I hope it's not one in which you join them.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gray, I really appreciate your presentation. At this juncture, do you feel that the performance of the forensic audit would actually do any good based on the
Honestly, I don't. And it's not because the forensic audit isn't the kind of audit to be done, but I would say that, since we had the meeting Monday, which I was in attendance, in which the attorney admitted that they knew about these liens early on and did not disclose it to the commission. Also, I guess Mr. Russell pretty much admitted the same thing. I don't know that you're going to find anything else there. And I think that what would happen would be Ms. Laurie Davis did an open records request and ran into almost total stonewall of attorney-client privileges and got very few documents, even though we were expecting more documents. And the documents we got had no signatures on them, no dates. So, what we have here is an almost embrace of almost a culture of corruption to me.
What would be your recommendation to possibly resolve the outstanding issues that we evidently have?
Well, my suggestion would be for this government to seek out and pursue. I think you were on the right course when you started talking about county-wide forensic audits. I think that's something that really needs to happen because we see widespread problems, certainly in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and possibly in the millions.
And my last question is, what is the intent of a forensic audit? I've been ridiculed saying that I was trying to send somebody to jail and so forth. What is the forensic audit designed to do?
A forensic audit is designed to present enough evidence and work papers firmly grounded in fact to be able to even take the court of law that's necessary for criminal prosecution. It's a more in-depth audit, and it really looks into a very deep level of detail.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Yes, Mr. Gray. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know you deal a lot with contracts, and what do you see the weaknesses that Augusta-Richmond County have in the contract process?
Well, it's pretty much across the board. Having looked at some of the architectural firms in Augusta, they have better controls in the city of Augusta. I mean, I see a total failure to identify overhead and profit items from direct cost. And I see even some of the bigger contracts, automatic increases so that you've got individuals that are capable of billing this government on an annualized basis, maybe $450,000. It's in $200 plus an hour. So in that particular contract, it's basically a statement that says you cannot go in there and you cannot look at any payroll records. Well, there's a problem with that because you might have somebody that's being billed as a project manager that's only a drafter or something like that. So you have to have that capability. And you also have to have the capability to go in there and look at their time charting system.
Instead of a forensic audit, would a operational audit be better in this circumstance?
It has to be built into the specifications and the scope of work for whatever audit you use. Actually, a financial audit, if they had the right kind of specifications, might work. Financial audits are built into this agreement, but they're basically rubber stamps because you're taking a snapshot in time and you're only looking at what has already been done. And I think a good example of an operational audit, what it does for you, the financial audit will not do is, I believe maybe Mr. Bowles or someone mentioned that you had done some sort of utilities audit to produce large savings, and those have been missed by financial audits. And so, and that's been my experience. That's been my type of service I provide, is to go in and find things financial audits have missed.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Commissioner Hadley.
That's a great question, sir. In your tenure of being involved in different types of development and stuff like that, has it ever come across your tenure whereas an individual has a piece of land and you are told that that land was donated to the city, and then after the building is built, you discover only because they asked you to sign an ordinance or air rights, only then did you learn that the city didn't own the land. Then through all of that you discovered that whoever owned the land got millions of dollars of liens on the land, yet you still took taxpayers' money and built a building on the land. Have you ever heard of such?
No, sir, I've never heard anything like that before.
Okay, just want to ask that question. I like to ask questions of experts who've had dealings in all kinds of situations. I appreciate that. I have not either, but I'm not an expert.
Okay, and along those lines, I would like to ask, Mr. Gray, and I appreciate your input on this, but would you please provide for me and this body a list of references so that we can corroborate your expertise in this field? And I would ask also that I would be more than happy to share that with the media. But I think prior to taking expert witness, we do need to establish that that person is an expert in the field, and I've just not seen any evidence to that effect.
No, sir, I would not dream of doing that in front of this body. I promise you that. That'd be the last thing I would do.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you have any further questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Mason.
Mr. Gray, I appreciate you coming forward. Why shouldn't I vote for this tonight?
Well, you shouldn't vote for it tonight because it's in the same vein and the same group of operations as public-private partnership that you have, and I believe that this should be an opportunity in the previous dealings with these folks going back to 1998 or 1999. I think I saw in the notes where Commissioner Hatney was making pointed reference to the fact that there were no audits available of those records, and we certainly can't get into those records from an open records perspective. So my focus tonight is, since you've got this agreement on the table and everybody seems to want to sign it, I would say hold off on it until you can get rights of audit and to all of these agreements with this partnership.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gray, over here. I do have one question in particular. In speaking with an attorney earlier today, technically, how legal is it to build a public building on property that the city, first of all, don't own and do not have a lease agreement to the property? Because in the past, if anyone, just say hypothetically New York, it's private owners that own property that skyscrapers sit on, but they have a 80-year lease. Is it anything in this particular situation that points to something being done haphazardly or illegally, or would it be better if it would have been a land lease agreement to lease the land and then build the building on that particular property, being it is a public building?
Well, let me address that by saying in the security deed, back in the records that's been carried forward, it very specifically says that any building built on the property hereafter becomes part of this security deed. So for an attorney to skip over that and just proceed with letting a building be erected without clarifying that point to be sold later is incomprehensible to me in my experience as an auditor and also as a landowner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
The next delegation.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. White, he's on our addendum agenda. He has requested that he be deleted from today's agenda and rescheduled for the February 21st meeting. Our next delegation will be Ms. Laura Davis regarding the T-Center parking deck, a citizen's perspective.
And if you could keep it to 5 minutes, please.
Gentlemen, it's heartening that just yesterday the Georgia Supreme Court acknowledged that elected officials work for the people and not the other way around. We believe that our leaders, both elected and hired, need to remember that you are the civil servants and we are your employer. It is our tax money that pays your salaries, and it is we who have every right to hold you accountable to us as your employer, right down to the very last penny. I realize that it is not in the collective DNA of our paid and elected officials to pay attention to your citizens, but I believe after today, you may begin to think a bit differently. I also hope, after hearing Al Gray's presentation and my comments, that you will realize that Augusta today might be the first citizen force worthy of recognition. A force that has set a goal of today to bring the truth to our citizens concerning the T-Center debacle and to hold accountable those who have offended our trust. For the past 5 years, I have been closely involved in what we refer to as Augusta-Richmond County government. The way this government operates defies all logic and appears to be nothing more than a grand puppet show with a grand puppeteer. One thing I do know is that people are tired of it. They are tired of the issues of this commission being painted as black and white, when clearly most issues are simply about right and wrong. It is obvious question of right and wrong that brought together our group of Augusta Today. Augusta Today is equipped with researchers, professionals, and public policy freaks. We have set out to uncover the reasons for the years of dysfunctional government. Looking at the 2-year struggle over the building of the T-Center and parking deck caused us to take notice. If this was such a great deal for everyone in Augusta, why was there such a struggle to get it passed? Through an open records request, what we found was riveting. The city did not own all the property under the deck or the T-Center. This was even more unbelievable because our city leaders, along with ranking employees of the Augusta Convention and Visitors Bureau, had made similar statements assuring us that the property under the deck and the T-Center would be donated. Even Augusta Riverfront, the so-called donor of the property, concurred. Imagine how shocking it was to find out that this was not the case, and even to find out that there was a $7 million lien on a large piece of property under the parking deck. To top all of that off, the city had already completed the parking deck and was well underway with the T-Center. The deceptive deals, to our astonishment, were hammered out by the city administrator, Fred Russell, along with the taxpayer-funded outside attorney, Jim Plunkett. Many questions came to mind. What could these two men have been thinking? Were they coerced? Who was protecting them? Who all knows about this? Who agreed to this incredible misuse of taxpayer dollars? Knowing what we knew, it was a breath of fresh air to see Commissioners Lockett, Mason, and Hatney start to ask the hard questions. This wasn't a black-white issue. They were right on the money with their questioning, yet they were vilified in the press. Commissioners Lockett, Mason, and Hatney, Augusta Today applauds you for your courage. Now here we are in this commission meeting awaiting a vote from our commissioners on whether or not it is even plausible to move forward with the negotiating and signing of an operational agreement for a parking deck that the city of Augusta does not own. To us, this is a no-brainer. Absolutely not. And certainly not with Mr. Russell at the helm. We realize at this point that there is nothing that can be done to take the building back of the deck or the T-Center. What a mess our most entrusted employees have made. The days of trust are over, at least for the citizens. Augusta Today would like to leave you with 2 suggestions that would be instrumental in moving this city forward from a citizen perspective. 1, do not vote to proceed with an operational agreement for the T-Center parking deck. And 2, relieve Mr. Russell and Mr. Plunkett from their duties as soon as possible. These 2 things would be a commendable start.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Lockett?
Ms. Davis, I want to commend you, Mr. Gray, and all the members of Augusta Today for the outstanding work that you all are doing. I mean, it's amazing in such a short period of time that you all can come up with a massive amount of wrongdoing in this government, whereas this has been going on for years and years, and no one obviously did anything about it. So I want to applaud you, I want to applaud Mr. Gray, and all of the members and friends of Augusta Today for your outstanding work. And please
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Madam Clerk, on to the next delegation.
Our next delegation is Ms. Monique Braswell regarding sharing of information regarding an appreciation breakfast, lunch, and dinner